Friends, if you want to watch the super hit movie How to Train Your Dragon 2025 in English, then you must like this video. If you are visiting our channel for the first time, do not forget to subscribe to our channel. Friends, in today's video the movie we are going to talk about is called How to Train Your Dragon 2025. We will cover what this movie is, where you can watch it, and all the interesting facts behind the scenes. I will guide you through the technical departments, music, pre-production, filming, post-production, budget and box office, plus a concise story overview and a short review of the plot. We will also break down star cast performances, who played which role, and any standout moments, so watch this video till the end to get everything you need to know about How to Train Your Dragon 2025. How to Train Your Dragon 2025 is one of the most anticipated animated fantasy films of the decade. Building on the legacy of the earlier trilogy, the movie has managed to capture global attention even before its release. The story world that started with the friendship between Hiccup and Toothless has grown into a franchise beloved by audiences of all ages. With stunning visuals, powerful storytelling, and an emotional bond between humans and dragons, the franchise has become one of DreamWorks Animation's most successful creations. This new installment promises to expand the mythology even further, while giving audiences a deeper understanding of the characters and the world they live in. The production journey of How to Train Your Dragon 2025 is itself a fascinating tale. The project went through an extended pre-production process where writers, directors, and storyboard artists carefully planned out every detail. From early drafts of the screenplay to final animation sketches, the goal was to balance heartwarming family-friendly storytelling with cutting-edge animation technology. The filmmakers invested in the latest rendering software to make dragon flight sequences feel more realistic than ever before. Every scale, wing flap, and fire breath was designed with precision to immerse audiences into a believable fantasy world. The music and sound design also play a huge role in making How to Train Your Dragon 2025 an unforgettable experience. The franchise has always been known for its sweeping orchestral scores that blend emotion with adventure. For this film, the composers worked to honor the established themes while also introducing fresh motifs that highlight the new story arcs. Combined with breathtaking sound mixing, the final soundtrack ensures that audiences feel the thrill of every battle, the sadness of every farewell, and the excitement of each discovery. Filming for an animated movie is very different from live-action projects, but the dedication behind this film was no less intense. The voice cast spent months recording their lines, often repeating scenes multiple times to capture the perfect emotional delivery. Animators then synchronized facial expressions and movements with the recorded voices, ensuring that every character felt alive. The post-production process was equally demanding, with editors polishing thousands of frames, color-correcting visuals, and making sure every scene flowed smoothly. Budget discussions around How to Train Your Dragon 2025 show how important this film is for DreamWorks. With a massive investment, the studio is banking on this release to be a worldwide box office success. Early estimates already predict strong ticket sales in both domestic and international markets. Given the success of the earlier films, it is safe to say that this new chapter will perform strongly across streaming platforms as well once it completes its theatrical run. The plot of How to Train Your Dragon 2025 picks up where the previous films left off, exploring what happens when humans and dragons must once again decide how to coexist. Hiccup continues his journey of leadership, now facing challenges not just as a dragon rider but as someone responsible for the future of his people. Toothless, still one of the most beloved animated dragons of all time, has his own arc filled with growth, discovery, and new responsibilities. Without revealing too many spoilers, the story balances action-packed sequences with moments of quiet reflection and emotional depth. Performance-wise, the cast does an exceptional job. Returning actors slip back into their roles with ease, bringing warmth, humor, and sincerity to their characters. New additions to the cast also shine, giving the film fresh energy and helping expand the world. There are several standout moments that fans will talk about long after leaving the theater, including breathtaking aerial battles and deeply moving character reunions. In review, How to Train Your Dragon 2025 successfully delivers on its promise of being both entertaining and meaningful. It is a film that offers adventure, heart, and a message about friendship, courage, and the bond between humans and creatures who are different yet connected. Families, fans of the franchise, and even newcomers will find something to love in this movie. Friends, this was a complete overview of How to Train Your Dragon 2025, from production details to cast performances and story highlights. If you enjoyed this video, make sure to like it and subscribe to our channel for more breakdowns, reviews, and updates on the biggest movie releases. Stay tuned, because the journey of dragons and humans is one that continues to inspire audiences worldwide. How to Train Your Dragon 2025 retells the original story as a live-action adaptation written and directed by Dean DeBlois and produced by Universal Pictures and DreamWorks Animation. It keeps the heart of the animated classic while adding new layers of realism and scale. The film follows Hiccup Horrendous Haddock III, played by Mason Thames, an inventive but physically awkward teenager who lives in the Viking village of Berk, where dragons frequently raid livestock and threaten the townspeople. Hiccup wants to prove his worth to his father Stoick the Vast, played by Gerard Butler, and to the rest of his tribe, but struggles to fit the mold of a typical Viking warrior. During a raid, Hiccup uses a bolus launcher and downs a rare night fury. He later finds the wounded dragon trapped in a cove. Instead of killing the creature, he frees it and begins a secret friendship that becomes the emotional core of the movie. The dragon, whom he names Toothless, forms a unique bond with Hiccup. As Hiccup experiments with mechanics, he designs a prosthetic tail fin and a specialized harness that allows them to fly together. These flight sequences become both visual spectacle and a dramatic turning point in Hiccup's growth and self-discovery. Hiccup attends a dragon training class taught by the gruff blacksmith and mentor Gobber the Belch, played by Nick Frost. He shares the class with peers including Snotlout Jorgensen, played by Gabriel Howell, Fishlegs Ingerman, played by Julian Dennison, and the Thorsten twins Roughnut and Toughnut, played by Bronwyn James and Harry Trevaldwyn. Astrid Hofferson, played by Nico Parker, is introduced as a fierce and capable fellow trainee who initially distrusts Hiccup's abilities and intentions but later becomes his closest ally and love interest. Their relationship grows slowly as she learns his secret about Toothless and joins him in understanding the true nature of dragons. As Hiccup secretly trains with Toothless, he realizes that the raids are not simply the result of aggression. The dragons are being forced to obey a massive and terrifying creature called the Red Death. This colossal dragon commands the smaller ones to bring it food, and if they fail, they risk being devoured. The villagers of Berk, unaware of this dynamic, continue to treat dragons as enemies. Stoick, determined to end the threat once and for all, mounts an expedition to locate and destroy the dragon nest. Hiccup, however, knows that attacking the nest will only escalate the danger. Tensions rise when Toothless is captured by the Vikings and used to lead the fleet to the dragon nest. Hiccup, along with Astrid and his fellow trainees, decides to intervene. They rally the training dragons they once feared and prepare for battle. This marks a turning point where the younger generation embraces cooperation rather than conflict, proving their maturity and bravery. Stoick and Hiccup clash as father and son, with Stoick struggling to accept his son's unconventional methods. But when danger strikes, Stoick's faith in Hiccup is renewed, and their bond is repaired. The climax delivers a breathtaking confrontation between Hiccup, Toothless, and the Red Death. The aerial battle is intense, filled with strategy, fire, and courage. The young dragon riders assist in weakening the monstrous creature while Hiccup and Toothless deliver the final blow. In the process, Hiccup is gravely injured, losing his left foot. This sacrifice mirrors Toothless' missing tail fin, symbolizing the deep connection between them. Gobber later constructs a prosthetic leg for Hiccup, reinforcing his growth from an awkward boy to a true leader. By the end, Berk undergoes a transformation. Dragons are no longer seen as enemies but as companions. The villagers accept a new way of life where humans and dragons coexist in harmony. Hiccup earns the respect of his father, his peers, and his community, proving that empathy and ingenuity can achieve more than brute force. Astrid stands proudly beside him, showing both partnership and affection, while Toothless cements his place as not only Hiccup's friend but also the symbol of unity between two worlds. Supporting performances from the ensemble cast enrich the story. Gerard Butler brings weight and authority to Stoick, while Nick Frost adds humor and warmth as Gobber. Nico Parker gives Astrid both toughness and vulnerability. Mason Thames portrays Hiccup with sincerity, balancing awkwardness with determination. Gabriel Howell, Julian Dennison, Bronwyn James, and Harry Trevaldwyn add energy and comic relief as Hiccup's classmates. Together, they create a believable village dynamic that underscores the larger themes of family, courage, and acceptance. The story of How to Train Your Dragon 2025 is ultimately about transformation. It explores how an unlikely hero forges a path that challenges tradition and fear. The live-action format gives new depth to the characters and world while staying faithful to the message of the original tale. With powerful performances, spectacular effects, and an emotional core rooted in friendship and bravery, This film offers both nostalgia and fresh wonder for longtime fans and newcomers alike. How to Train Your Dragon 2025 opens with the village of Berk under siege from dragons. The very first image establishes the tone of the film, showing fire, chaos, and the fearless Vikings fighting off the threat. This opening is crucial because it creates a world where dragons are seen as enemies, and it sets up the central conflict: humans versus dragons. Right away we are introduced to Hiccup Horrendous Haddock III, a skinny, inventive teenager who is nothing like the hardened warriors around him. His narration guides us into his perspective, framing him as both an outsider and the eventual heart of the story. The setup establishes Hiccup's relationship with his father Stoick the Vast, the leader of Berk. Stoick loves his son but views him as weak and incapable of fulfilling the role of a Viking warrior. Hiccup wants nothing more than to prove himself to his father and his people. He builds contraptions in the forge under the eye of Gobber the Belch, who serves as both mentor and comic relief. This early stretch grounds the audience in Hiccup's dilemma. He is caught between expectation and individuality. The inciting incident arrives during a dragon raid when Hiccup sneaks out with one of his inventions, a bolus launcher. Against all odds, he manages to shoot down a Night Fury, the rarest and most feared dragon of all. Nobody believes his claim, but this moment propels the story forward, because it gives him a chance to prove himself if he can just show evidence of his victory. When he tracks the dragon to a secluded cove, however, he faces his first true test. Knife in hand, he prepares to kill the creature, but something inside him shifts. Instead of striking, he chooses compassion. This is the film's first major turning point, signaling that Hiccup will follow a different path than the rest of his people. The rising action begins as Hiccup secretly returns to the cove to study the Night Fury. The dragon, whom he later names Toothless, is injured and unable to fly. Hiccup designs a prosthetic tail fin and slowly earns Toothless' trust. Their first flight sequence together is both thrilling and symbolic. Hiccup is literally lifted into a new world where humans and dragons can coexist. Parallel to this secret bond, Hiccup is enrolled in dragon training with Astrid Hofferson, Snotlout Jorgensen, Fishlegs Ingerman, and the Thorsten twins. While the others fight and wrestle with captured dragons, Hiccup uses his new knowledge to outsmart them, demonstrating empathy instead of violence. These scenes cleverly build tension because his classmates think he has suddenly become skilled, while the audience knows his real secret. A big mid-film turn occurs when Astrid discovers Toothless and confronts Hiccup. Initially furious at his deception, she softens after experiencing her own ride on Toothless. Together, they discover the dragon nest controlled by the monstrous Red Death. This revelation reframes the entire conflict, showing that the smaller dragons raid villages not out of malice but out of fear and survival. The narrative choice to reveal this information to Hiccup and Astrid, but not to the rest of Berk, heightens suspense, because the audience understands the danger of Stoick's mission long before the characters do. The stakes rise when Stoick imprisons Toothless and uses him to lead the Viking fleet to the nest. Hiccup, now stripped of his dragon, feels powerless but refuses to give up. This launches the third act as he rallies Astrid and the other trainees. Using the dragons they once trained to fight, they ride into battle to save their village and rescue Toothless. This reversal is both exciting and meaningful. The very children once dismissed as weak now embody the future of Berk. The finale delivers the film's emotional and action-packed climax. Hiccup frees Toothless and faces the Red Death in a massive aerial battle. The fight is not simply about spectacle, it encapsulates Hiccup's journey from rejection to leadership. He and Toothless use strategy, speed, and trust to bring down the enormous dragon. In the process, Hiccup sacrifices his own safety, resulting in the loss of his left foot. This moment lands hardest emotionally, because it shows that victory comes with a cost. When Hiccup awakens to find Toothless by his side and a prosthetic leg fitted by Gobber, the parallel between boy and dragon is complete. The final beats resolve the story on a hopeful note. Berk is transformed into a place where humans and dragons live together in harmony. The narrative has been linear, but the careful pacing of reveals ensures that each discovery reshapes how the audience views the conflict. By holding back the truth about the Red Death until the midpoint and saving Stoick's recognition of Hiccup for the climax, the film keeps emotional peaks spread throughout the runtime. The closing image mirrors the opening raid but flips the meaning. Instead of chaos, the skies are filled with dragons and riders soaring in peace. The plot of How to Train Your Dragon 2025 is tightly constructed, with turning points that consistently pivot the story in new directions. From the inciting incident of sparing Toothless, to Astrid's discovery, to the climactic sacrifice, Each moment reinforces themes of empathy, courage, and growth. The film chooses to focus on character-driven revelations rather than twists of fate, making the journey feel earned and deeply resonant. The narrative succeeds not only in moving the plot forward but also in leaving deliberate gaps for interpretation, such as how long coexistence will truly last. In the end, it is an entertaining yet thoughtful journey that elevates both the spectacle and the humanity of its story. At its core, How to Train Your Dragon 2025 is a story about people as much as it is about dragons, and the way its characters develop is what gives the narrative emotional weight. Each major figure begins with clear wants and obstacles, and the film carefully tracks how they grow, or refuse to grow, by the end. The arcs are not only individual but relational, showing how connections force these characters to confront themselves. Hiccup Horrendous Haddock III, played by Mason Thames, is the heart of the film. When the story begins, he is an inventive yet awkward teenager who craves recognition from his father and his village. His want is simple: to be accepted as a Viking warrior. What stands in his way is equally clear: his physical weakness, his non-traditional approach to problem-solving, and the fact that Stoick does not believe in him. Hiccup's arc begins in frustration, where every action is designed to prove he belongs. The subtle beats of his development appear early, such as the hesitation in his hand when he nearly kills the captured Night Fury. That small gesture signals that his deepest trait is not violence but empathy. As the story progresses, his desire shifts from external validation to internal conviction. By the end, he no longer needs to fit into Berk's definition of a warrior. He has redefined what leadership and courage mean. His sacrifice in the final battle, where he loses his foot, becomes the ultimate proof that his growth is real and permanent. Stoick the Vast, played by Gerard Butler, represents both fatherhood and the old way of thinking. At the start, Stoick is a leader who sees the world in black and white. Dragons are the enemy, and strength is measured in brute force. What he wants is security for Berk and legacy through his son. What stands in his way is Hiccup's refusal to conform. Stoick's arc is one of reluctant recognition. His change is not immediate but incremental, revealed in offhand lines where pride slips through, even if he does not say it outright. A critical moment of development comes when he risks his life to save Hiccup during the climactic battle, realizing his son's unconventional methods are not weakness but strength. By the end, Stoick does not just accept Hiccup, he allows his worldview to be reshaped, signaling generational change in Berk's leadership. Astrid Hofferson, played by Nico Parker, is both foil and partner to Hiccup. At first, she embodies the Viking ideal: fierce, disciplined, and skeptical of Hiccup's sudden success in training. What she wants is honor and to uphold tradition, and what stands in her way is her inability to see beyond it. Her development is marked by suspicion giving way to trust. A key turning point is the moment she rides Toothless for the first time. The awe in her expression reveals that her loyalty to tradition cannot outweigh her lived experience of seeing dragons differently. Astrid's arc intertwines with Hiccup's. Her acceptance of his worldview validates him, while his bravery challenges her to expand her own definition of strength. By the finale, she is not just Hiccup's ally but also a leader in her own right, suggesting that her growth has future implications for Berk. Toothless, though not human, undergoes one of the most moving arcs. At the beginning, he is a wounded, distrustful creature forced into submission by survival. His want is freedom, and his obstacle is injury and fear. Through small, almost wordless gestures, the lowering of his head, the hesitant blink, Toothless mirrors Hiccup's growth. Their relationship is one of mutual development. As Hiccup learns courage, Toothless learns trust. By the climax, Toothless no longer acts as a victim of circumstance but as an active partner in the fight against the Red Death. His loyalty to Hiccup transcends instinct, and their final act of joint sacrifice solidifies his transformation from isolated predator to symbol of harmony. The Red Death, as the antagonist, represents fear, domination, and the destructive cycle of survival through control. Unlike the nuanced characters, the Red Death does not grow but serves as a force of nature that challenges others to evolve. Its existence explains the behavior of the dragons and forces Hiccup and Stoick to reconsider their assumptions. While the creature lacks dialogue, its narrative purpose is profound. It externalizes the conflict that divides Berk and provides the crucible for the character's transformation. Side characters such as Gobber, Snotlout, Fishlegs, Rough Nut, and Tough Nut are not simply window dressing. Gobber, played by Nick Frost, provides comic relief but also wisdom, often revealing hidden motives in his encouragement of Hiccup. His missing limb is a foreshadowing of Hiccup's eventual loss, creating a bond that only becomes clear at the end. The younger trainees serve as reflections of Berk's culture, initially mocking Hiccup but later rallying behind him. Their shift from bullies to allies highlights the broader change within the village. The clearest scene of growth comes in the cove when Hiccup reaches out his hand to Toothless and waits, silently, for the dragon to respond. This beat encapsulates his empathy, patience, and willingness to risk himself for connection. Similarly, Stoick's final embrace of his son after the battle is more than a gesture of relief. It is the culmination of his entire arc, a surrender of pride in favor of love. By the conclusion, every central character has been reshaped. Hiccup has grown from outsider to leader, Stoick from rigid father to open-minded ally, Astrid from skeptic to believer, and Toothless from prisoner to partner. These arcs are not just personal victories but cultural ones, signaling the dawn of a new Berk where coexistence replaces conflict. The careful layering of subtle beats and bold turning points makes the character development in How to Train Your Dragon 2025 as powerful as its spectacle. The performances in How to Train Your Dragon 2025 are central to making the live-action adaptation resonate. While the story is familiar, the cast is tasked with bringing animated archetypes into a world of flesh and blood. The results vary, but the best performances feel lived-in and transformative, while others occasionally strain against the heightened material. Mason Thames as Hiccup shoulders the film's emotional core. From the opening scenes he conveys a combination of awkward energy and buried determination. His physicality is essential. He moves with a lanky, hesitant gait that sells Hiccup's discomfort in a warrior culture. Yet Thames never plays him as pitiful. Instead, small glances and vocal cracks signal a boy desperate to prove himself but unsure of how. The standout moment of his performance is in the cove when he first approaches Toothless. His trembling hand and controlled breath make the scene feel authentic, and his whispered words carry the weight of a choice that will define his future. By the finale, Thames shifts his presence. In commanding his fellow trainees during the Red Death battle, his voice steadies, his posture stiffens, and he becomes the leader the story demands. The transformation is believable, and it anchors the entire film. Gerard Butler reprises Stoick the Vast and delivers a performance full of gravitas. His deep voice and physical bulk already dominate every frame, but what makes his work effective are the moments of restraint. In early scenes, Butler communicates Stoick's disappointment with a heavy sigh or a curt glance rather than drawn-out speeches. This economy of expression adds weight. His strongest moment arrives near the climax when he believes Hiccup has perished. The broken tone in his cry cuts through the spectacle and grounds the battle in raw emotion. Butler occasionally leans into gruff caricature during comedic beats, but when the drama calls, he disappears into the role, giving the father-son relationship its necessary complexity. Nico Parker as Astrid offers a sharp and layered performance. At first she plays Astrid with clipped delivery and stern posture, embodying discipline and suspicion. But as her arc unfolds, Parker allows cracks of warmth to peek through. The scene where she first experiences flight on Toothless is a perfect showcase of her subtlety. Her laughter is not exaggerated but earned, and the shift in her eyes shows that her worldview has changed without a single word of exposition. Later, in moments of partnership with Hiccup, her chemistry with Thames shines. Their banter feels natural, and a quiet exchange before the final battle underscores their growing bond. Parker's ability to balance toughness with vulnerability makes her one of the film's standout players. Nick Frost as Gobber provides both levity and pathos. His comic timing is impeccable, with wry delivery that breaks tension without undermining stakes. Yet Frost avoids making Gobber one-note. In quieter moments, particularly when he counsels Hiccup about the realities of battle, his softened tone reveals wisdom and affection. The prosthetic connection between Gobber and Hiccup gains resonance because Frost plays it sincerely. He turns what could have been a purely comedic supporting role into something layered and memorable. Among the younger cast, Julian Dennison as Fishleg stands out with an earnestness that makes his character likable. His encyclopedic knowledge of dragons could have come across as gimmicky, but Dennison delivers it with such enthusiasm that it becomes endearing. Gabriel Howell as Snotlout provides the necessary brash counterpoint, though his performance occasionally tips into broadness, making some lines feel forced. Bronwyn James and Harry Trevaldwyn as Roughnut and Toughnut bring chaotic energy, and while not every joke lands, their sibling squabbling adds texture to the group dynamic. The creature performance of Toothless, brought to life through visual effects and motion capture cues, deserves recognition alongside the human actors. The animators craft expressions, but it is the subtle timing of movements, the tilt of the head, the narrowing of eyes, that make him feel alive. In his interactions with Mason Thames, the illusion of a real relationship emerges. The trust-building sequence, where Toothless mirrors Hiccup's movements, becomes one of the film's most poignant nonverbal performances. If there is one performance that occasionally feels out of step, it comes from smaller supporting roles such as Spitelout or secondary villagers, where the acting sometimes leans into exaggerated Viking stereotypes. These moments do not derail the film, but they contrast sharply with the more grounded and emotionally nuanced performances of the main cast. A few lines that might have resonated more deeply are instead delivered as blunt exposition, undercutting their impact. The ensemble's chemistry is crucial, and in the climactic dragon battle it pays off. Watching the young riders coordinate in chaos feels convincing because of the groundwork laid earlier in training scenes. The timing of their reactions, the urgency in their voices, and the way they glance at Hiccup for guidance all sell the idea of growth and unity. Overall, the performances in How to Train Your Dragon 2025 elevate the material. Mason Thames provides a touching, transformative arc as Hiccup. Gerard Butler grounds the story with fatherly strength and sorrow. Nico Parker delivers one of the film's most compelling turns, blending fierceness with empathy. Nick Frost balances humor and wisdom, and the supporting players give color to Berk's community. Even when minor roles falter, the emotional power of the leads ensures the story lands. Together, they transform written beats into living, breathing characters, making the journey as memorable for the acting as it is for the spectacle. The direction of How to Train Your Dragon 2025 defines the balance between fantasy spectacle and human intimacy. Dean DeBlois, returning after shaping the animated trilogy, approaches the live-action adaptation with a vision that feels both respectful of the source material and bold enough to reimagine it for a new medium. His hand is evident in nearly every choice, from the deliberate pacing of character arcs to the visual grammar that gives the world of Berk its texture. One of the clearest strengths of his direction is tone. The film could have easily tilted into campy spectacle or over-serious melodrama, but DeBlois threads the needle. He grounds the narrative in sincere emotion, making sure that the relationships drive the story even when dragons soar across the screen. This tonal balance mirrors what made the original animated film resonate, yet the live-action version amplifies the drama by leaning into realism. He guides the actors toward grounded performances, emphasizing vulnerability and humanity over cartoonish exaggeration. Pacing is another area where DeBlois demonstrates control. The first act unfolds deliberately, establishing Berk as both harsh and homey. Instead of rushing into dragon action, he lingers on quiet village life, stoic training sequences, and Hiccup's strained interactions with Stoick. Some viewers may find this slower introduction a risk, but it pays off because when Toothless enters the story, the contrast is striking. The flight sequences are then given room to breathe, unfolding with a lyrical rhythm that mirrors the awe the characters feel. The climactic battle, by contrast, accelerates into tighter edits and frantic movement, reflecting the chaos of facing the Red Death. The shifts in tempo are intentional, and they heighten the emotional journey rather than distract from it. DeBlois shows a preference for immersive camera work. Long tracking shots capture the scale of Berk's cliffs and forests, drawing the audience into a tactile environment. These moments give the world a lived-in quality and make the dragon flights feel expansive. At the same time, he is not afraid to cut sharply when emotional stakes spike. A heated argument between Hiccup and Stoick uses abrupt cuts and close-ups to underline the tension, forcing us to confront their clashing perspectives without the relief of wide framing. This alternation between sweeping spectacle and claustrophobic intimacy creates a rhythm that keeps the audience engaged on multiple levels. The staging of scenes reveals his sensitivity to physical space. The cove where Hiccup bonds with Toothless is staged as a sanctuary, with wide framing that emphasizes isolation. DeBlois often positions Hiccup at the edge of the frame while Toothless dominates the center, visually communicating the boy's hesitance and the dragon's power. As trust grows, the blocking shifts, bringing them closer together until they share the frame as equals. This careful orchestration transforms a simple friendship into something cinematic, and it is a testament to the director's precision. Guiding actors through this kind of material is no small task, but DeBlois demonstrates a keen understanding of performance. Mason Thames is allowed to play Hiccup with restraint, never forced into exaggerated reactions that would break immersion. Nico Parker's Astrid benefits from direction that emphasizes her subtle shifts in body language, ensuring her arc is communicated visually as much as verbally. Gerard Butler's Stoick is channeled into a mix of authority and tenderness, never letting him tip too far into one-dimensional sternness. DeBlois makes sure that even the supporting characters, such as Nick Frost's Gobber, are given room to establish rhythm and personality, balancing comic relief with sincerity. Stylistically, DeBlois leaves fingerprints throughout. His preference for atmospheric close-ups during emotional beats, such as Hiccup reaching out to Toothless, creates intimacy that bridges the gap between spectacle and character drama. He uses silence effectively, allowing moments of stillness to carry weight rather than relying solely on dialogue or score. At the same time, some choices are more questionable. In certain action sequences, the heavy reliance on CGI leads to cluttered compositions where the eye does not know where to land. While the energy is palpable, the clarity of storytelling occasionally suffers, diluting the impact of otherwise well-staged battles. Another debatable choice is the darker color palette compared to the animated version. While the intention is clear, grounding the story in realism, it occasionally risks muting the sense of wonder. The cove and flight sequences restore that magic with bursts of light and vibrant skies, but some village scenes appear overly muted, dampening the warmth of Berk's culture. This stylistic decision contributes to a more mature tone, but it may not fully satisfy those seeking the colorful vibrancy of the original. Despite these minor stumbles, DeBlois' directorial control largely shapes a film that feels cohesive and emotionally resonant. He never loses sight of the fact that the heart of the story is not the dragons themselves but the bond between Hiccup and Toothless, and every stylistic decision circles back to that truth. The long tracking shots, the atmospheric close-ups, the careful blocking, and the deliberate pacing all reinforce the central relationship. Ultimately, the direction of How to Train Your Dragon 2025 is what gives the adaptation its identity. DeBlois honors the spirit of the animated film while embracing the opportunities of live action. His confident decisions heighten key moments, his guiding hand brings out strong performances, and even his more questionable stylistic experiments reflect a willingness to push boundaries. The result is a film that feels like both a continuation of a beloved legacy and a fresh cinematic experience, with directorial vision steering it every step of the way. The cinematography of How to Train Your Dragon 2025 is one of the defining elements that transforms the live-action adaptation into a fully realized cinematic experience. With Roger Deakins serving as a visual consultant and a team of talented cinematographers executing the vision, the film's look is both grounded in realism and infused with a sense of wonder. The camera does not simply capture the story. It interprets it, making choices in framing, movement, color, and lighting that shape how the audience feels about each moment. Framing plays a critical role in how the film balances scale with intimacy. Wide shots dominate the depiction of Berk, capturing its jagged cliffs, stormy seas, and sprawling forests. These wides establish the village as a character in its own right, a harsh yet beautiful environment that defines the lives of its people. The use of aerial shots, especially during dragon flight sequences, creates an almost lyrical sense of movement, as if the camera itself has wings. In contrast, tight framing is reserved for moments of personal conflict or connection. When Hiccup first reaches out to Toothless, the camera closes in on their faces and gestures, pulling us into the vulnerability of the moment. By alternating between expansive and intimate framing, the cinematography reinforces the dual themes of epic adventure and personal growth. Camera movement is fluid and purposeful throughout the film. Tracking shots follow characters through the bustling village, giving the audience a sense of the physical space and community life. Handheld shots are used sparingly but effectively, particularly during chaotic battle sequences where the instability of the frame mirrors the uncertainty of survival. The flight sequences are where the cinematography truly soars. Sweeping crane shots and smooth aerial tracking allow the audience to experience the exhilaration of riding a dragon, while sudden drops and sharp pans simulate the dangers of diving mid-air. This dynamic movement makes the flights not just thrilling set pieces but deeply emotional experiences, reflecting Hiccup's own liberation as he bonds with Toothless. Lighting is another key storytelling tool. Early scenes in Berk are dominated by cold, muted tones, grays, blues, and earthy browns, that emphasize the harshness of Viking life. Interiors of homes and halls are dimly lit with flickering firelight, creating an atmosphere of tradition, authority, and sometimes oppression. When Hiccup discovers the cove where he meets Toothless, the lighting changes dramatically. Soft natural light filters through trees, creating a gentle, almost magical glow that marks the cove as a sanctuary. This contrast in lighting visually communicates the difference between the world of humans and the private world of dragons. In later scenes, as the bond between Hiccup and Toothless grows, the lighting begins to soften even in village settings, subtly signaling the thematic shift toward unity and acceptance. The color palette is carefully designed to reinforce emotional beats. Berk's palette is dominated by desaturated tones, reflecting a community hardened by survival. The dragons, however, bring bursts of color into the frame, shimmering scales, fiery reds, and glowing blues that stand out against the muted backdrop. Toothless himself, being black with subtle iridescence, represents a bridge between the two worlds, blending in with the shadows yet revealing hints of light when caught by the sun. During flight sequences, the palette brightens with clear skies, radiant sunsets, and star-filled nights, offering visual relief and emphasizing the joy of freedom. The climactic battle against the Red Death uses deep contrasts, with fiery explosions illuminating the night sky, creating striking compositions that highlight the scale of danger. One of the most striking visual motifs is the interplay of shadow and light to mirror character development. Hiccup is often shown in shadow or half-light during the early acts, representing his uncertainty and the way he feels unseen by his father and peers. As his relationship with Toothless grows, he is increasingly filmed in full light, his features clear and confident. Stoick, by contrast, is frequently lit from above, casting strong shadows across his face, symbolizing the weight of leadership and tradition. Astrid's arc is also visually represented through light. Initially framed in harsher, colder light that reflects her skepticism, she is later illuminated with warmer tones during her growing alliance with Hiccup. The film's standout shots linger long after the credits. One unforgettable image is Hiccup extending his hand to Toothless, the camera lingering on the space between them before their touch bridges the gap, a visual metaphor for trust. Another is the wide shot of Berk seen from the sky during a sunrise flight, with dragons circling the cliffs, encapsulating the film's theme of harmony. The final shot of Hiccup and Toothless flying together into the horizon is composed to echo the series' animated origins while also feeling fresh in live action, leaving viewers with a sense of closure and continuation. The cinematography is not decorative but essential. Each shot is constructed to serve narrative and emotional purpose. Even seemingly simple establishing shots carry symbolic weight, positioning characters against their environment in ways that emphasize isolation, courage, or transformation. The cinematography ensures that the visual experience is not just beautiful but meaningful, reinforcing character arcs and narrative beats. If there are criticisms, they lie in the occasional reliance on heavy CGI during action sequences, which sometimes muddies the clarity of the frame. In the most chaotic battles, the camera's dynamism can overwhelm, making it difficult to focus on specific character beats. However, these moments are rare compared to the overall visual coherence of the film. Ultimately, the cinematography of How to Train Your Dragon 2025 is a triumph in visual storytelling. It captures the grandeur of dragon flight, the intimacy of human connection, and the thematic contrasts of fear and trust, tradition and change. Through framing, movement, color, and lighting, the film delivers images that are both breathtaking and emotionally resonant, ensuring that the way we see the story is inseparable from how we feel it. The editing of How to Train Your Dragon 2025 is one of the invisible forces that shapes how the story unfolds, dictating rhythm, tension, and emotional flow. A film of this scale, blending intimate character drama with sweeping fantasy spectacle, depends heavily on precise editing choices to keep audiences engaged without overwhelming them. What becomes clear as the film progresses is that the editing aims to balance spectacle with heart, often slowing down in emotional moments and quickening during flights or battles to maximize immersion. Transitions are generally smooth, with editors opting for continuity-driven cuts that maintain clarity. The film avoids excessive stylistic flourishes, preferring to let camera work and performance carry the visual weight. Dissolves are used sparingly, usually to transition between day and night or to signal a passage of time in the village. This straightforward approach serves the narrative well, ensuring that the story never loses momentum to unnecessary stylistics. The most creative transitions appear during flight sequences, where wide aerial shots cut seamlessly into close-ups of Hiccup and Toothless, blending perspective shifts without jarring the viewer. Montages are used effectively to propel momentum in key sections. The training montage where Hiccup learns how to work with Toothless rather than fight him stands out as an example of editing that balances humor, discovery, and emotion. Quick cuts between Hiccup's experiments, Toothless' reactions, and the skeptical looks of other villagers allow the sequence to unfold briskly, giving audiences the sense of time passing and progress being made without dragging. Later, when Hiccup and Astrid join forces, another short montage accelerates their growing trust, condensing what could have been lengthy dialogue exchanges into sharp, visual storytelling. Pacing across the 3 acts shows deliberate rhythm. The first act moves slowly, giving room for world building and character setup. Some viewers may find this deliberate pace sluggish, especially in the early village scenes, but it provides a necessary foundation. The second act picks up considerably, propelled by the bond between Hiccup and Toothless and the joy of dragon flight. Editing here leans into fluid transitions and longer takes, allowing audiences to soak in the emotional highs. The third act, as expected, quickens dramatically, cutting rapidly between the climactic battle, the villagers' reactions, and Toothless' struggle against the Red Death. This sprinting rhythm heightens urgency but occasionally sacrifices clarity, as some cuts move so quickly that spatial geography becomes difficult to follow. Still, the momentum carries the audience into the finale without losing emotional stakes. Cross-cutting is employed strategically to build suspense. One memorable instance occurs when Stoick and the villagers prepare for a dragon assault while Hiccup secretly tends to Toothless. Cutting between the escalating preparations and Hiccup's quiet defiance creates tension without dialogue, highlighting the contrast between collective fear and personal compassion. Later, during the final battle, cross-cutting between Hiccup on Toothless and Astrid coordinating villagers on the ground underscores the collaboration needed to triumph, showing how editing ties character arcs into the larger action. Flashbacks are used sparingly but to strong effect. Instead of lengthy expository flashbacks, the film employs quick visual recalls, images of Hiccup's strained interactions with Stoick, echoes of his failures, or brief glimpses of Berk's past conflicts with dragons. These inserts are cut with restraint, often lasting only seconds, yet they effectively deepen emotional context without bogging down the pacing. This choice shows that the editors trusted the audience to connect dots without lengthy detours. One of the film's strengths lies in its use of silence and restraint. Several sequences resist the temptation of rapid-fire cutting or wall-to-wall music, allowing moments to breathe. When Hiccup first approaches Toothless in the cove, the editing slows dramatically. Long takes are intercut with minimal cuts, forcing the audience to sit in the stillness of anticipation. The absence of quick cuts builds suspense far more effectively than rapid editing could, and when the breakthrough of trust finally comes, the emotional release feels earned. The emotional peaks are often amplified by editing rhythm. For example, the triumphant first flight with Toothless is paced with alternating long, sweeping shots and quick close-ups, creating a rhythm that mirrors exhilaration. Conversely, the scene where Stoick and Hiccup clash over loyalty to the village versus compassion for Toothless uses slower pacing, holding on reaction shots and silences that emphasize disappointment and frustration. By adjusting rhythm to fit tone, the editing ensures that the emotional journey lands as powerfully as the visual spectacle. That said, the editing is not flawless. In the climactic third act, the rapid cutting occasionally works against clarity. Shots of dragons battling in the night sky intermingle with fiery explosions and ground-level action, and at times it becomes difficult to track who is where. A slightly steadier rhythm could have preserved suspense without sacrificing geography. Similarly, one or two transitions between acts feel abrupt, particularly the shift from Hiccup's bonding with Toothless to the sudden discovery by Astrid, which might have benefited from a slower ramp-up. Despite these minor shortcomings, the overall editing of How to Train Your Dragon 2025 demonstrates discipline and narrative intelligence. It avoids over-editing for style's sake, instead shaping time and tension in service of story and character. The rhythm across acts provides balance, giving audiences both the breathless exhilaration of dragon flights and the quiet intimacy of human connection. When it sprints, it excites. When it lingers, it resonates. That measured control is what makes the editing more than functional. It is essential to why the film works as both a blockbuster spectacle and an emotional journey. The soundtrack and score of How to Train Your Dragon 2025 are not just supporting elements but essential forces that shape the emotional core of the film. Music in this story operates as an invisible narrator, guiding audiences through shifts in tone, underlining character arcs, and amplifying dramatic stakes. John Powell, who composed the beloved animated trilogy, returns with a score that honors the original while reimagining its themes for a live-action setting. His work is supplemented with carefully chosen licensed tracks that occasionally punctuate modern moments, though the orchestral score dominates and remains the backbone of the film's sound identity. From the opening notes, the score establishes a sense of scale and myth. The prologue is underscored with low strings and brass that evoke both danger and awe, signaling that dragons are not merely creatures of fantasy but forces of nature. This sets the tone for Berk as a harsh environment where survival is always uncertain. The first cues are restrained, holding back the full thematic melodies until Hiccup's world begins to shift, ensuring that the musical journey mirrors his personal transformation. Recurring motifs are central to the score's effectiveness. Hiccup is given a theme built on rising strings paired with woodwinds, embodying both vulnerability and aspiration. This theme often begins quietly, played on a single flute or violin during moments of self-doubt, before swelling into a full orchestral statement when he finds courage. Toothless, by contrast, is given a darker yet playful motif, often carried by cellos and accented with percussion that mimics wing beats. As their bond deepens, these two themes intertwine, sometimes literally layered on top of one another in the orchestration, symbolizing their growing unity. This thematic interplay ensures that the audience feels the emotional stakes of their relationship beyond dialogue or visuals. One of the standout musical sequences occurs during Hiccup and Toothless' first flight. The score explodes with triumphant horns, soaring strings, and rhythmic percussion that syncs with the dragon's movements. The music captures not only the exhilaration of flight but also the liberation Hiccup feels in finally finding his place. Without this cue, the scene might still be visually impressive, but it is the music that transforms it into a transcendent experience. The melody lingers long after the scene ends, one of the reasons this sequence will remain etched in the audience's memory. Silence plays an equally important role in the film's sonic design. When Hiccup first approaches Toothless in the cove, the absence of music creates an almost unbearable tension. We hear only natural sounds, leaves rustling, the dragon's breathing, Hiccup's hesitant steps. The restraint emphasizes vulnerability, making the eventual swell of soft strings when Toothless accepts Hiccup's touch feel like a cathartic release. This contrast between silence and music demonstrates the filmmaker's understanding that sound is not just about presence but also about absence. Licensed music is used sparingly, and while some purists may argue that it breaks immersion, the selections are handled with care. A brief training montage features a modern folk-inspired track, adding levity and a different texture to the otherwise orchestral-heavy film. While it risks pulling audiences out of the Viking setting, the upbeat rhythm fits the montage's humor and pacing. For the most part, however, the soundtrack avoids heavy reliance on contemporary songs, allowing Powell's score to remain the emotional through line. Tension is often manipulated through subtle musical cues. Low strings and pulsating percussion accompany scenes where dragons attack the village, the rhythm mimicking a heartbeat to raise anxiety. Conversely, moments of discovery use light woodwinds and harp to create an atmosphere of wonder. During the climactic confrontation with the Red Death, the score escalates to one of its most complex arrangements, layering multiple motifs: Hiccup's determination, Toothless' power, the villagers' fear, into a single cacophony of sound. The density of this composition mirrors the chaos of battle, but as the tide turns, the music simplifies into a clear, heroic statement, signaling victory before the visuals confirm it. There are moments where the score risks overplaying its hand. In one or two emotional exchanges between Hiccup and Stoick, the swelling strings feel almost too insistent, pushing sentimentality rather than letting performances speak for themselves. While not distracting enough to break immersion, these instances highlight the fine line between enhancing emotion and dictating it. Still, such moments are exceptions rather than the rule, and for the majority of the film, the score's emotional guidance feels organic and necessary. The closing scenes return to familiar motifs in new variations, a hallmark of strong scoring. Hiccup's theme reappears, but with a fuller orchestration that reflects his growth, no longer hesitant but assured. Toothless' motif joins it in harmony, creating a final musical statement of unity that perfectly encapsulates the journey. The last shot of them flying together is elevated not only by the visual but by the music, which swells into a powerful crescendo before fading into silence, leaving the audience with a sense of completion and continuation. Ultimately, the soundtrack and score of How to Train Your Dragon 2025 elevate the film beyond spectacle into something mythic and emotionally resonant. Through recurring motifs, careful use of silence, and powerful crescendos, the music ensures that the story's beats land with maximum impact. Even when the visuals impress, it is the score that makes them unforgettable. Music here is not decoration but narrative, an unseen character whose voice is as essential as Hiccup's or Toothless. How to Train Your Dragon 2025 operates on more than just the surface level of action and fantasy spectacle. At its core, the film explores themes of identity, legacy, and the enduring bond between humans and dragons. These themes weave through every scene, sometimes overtly through dialogue, but more often through visual storytelling and character choices. The narrative pushes its characters to question who they are when their world shifts, and in doing so, The film asks the audience to reflect on their own relationship with change, responsibility, and the search for belonging. One of the strongest thematic elements in the movie is identity. Hiccup is no longer the young, wide-eyed boy learning how to coexist with Toothless. He is now a leader faced with the challenge of defining himself outside of past victories. The story subtly emphasizes how identity evolves, not just in individuals but in entire communities. The new generation of dragon riders struggles with their own roles, mirroring the uncertainty of anyone trying to step into the shadows of legends. These arcs resonate because they are universal. Every viewer has grappled with the question of who they are in the face of expectation and change. Redemption also plays heavily in the film's moral undertones. Some of the antagonistic forces introduced are not purely evil, but rather misguided or shaped by fear. This prevents the narrative from falling into a black-and-white moral structure and instead reinforces the idea that people, and dragons, are complex. By showing that redemption is possible even for those who seem lost, the film broadens its scope from simple hero versus villain conflict into something more nuanced. It suggests that mistakes do not define a person forever, and that reconciliation, while difficult, is always worth striving for. The film does not shy away from exploring the theme of power either. Dragons have long been symbols of both danger and wonder, and in this new chapter, the struggle over how power should be used drives the central conflict. The characters must decide whether dragons are tools of destruction or partners in coexistence. This thematic exploration connects to larger, real-world conversations about how humanity handles power, whether through technology, politics, or natural resources. The movie uses dragons as a metaphor to highlight the dangers of exploitation and the responsibilities that come with great influence. Love, in both familial and romantic forms, continues to be a cornerstone theme. The bond between Hiccup and Toothless is the emotional backbone of the story, and the filmmakers reinforce that their connection goes beyond rider and dragon. It is a profound friendship that speaks to the human need for companionship and understanding. At the same time, Hiccup's relationship with Astrid is portrayed with maturity, showing the balance between personal duty and personal connection. Together, these relationships highlight that love is not only a source of comfort but also a force that shapes decisions and strengthens resilience. Fear is another recurring theme, both as a motivator and an obstacle. Fear of the unknown, fear of loss, and fear of change all thread through the narrative. Characters who succumb to fear often act destructively, while those who confront it grow into stronger, more complete individuals. The film makes it clear that fear cannot be avoided, but it can be managed and even transformed into courage. This thematic element provides some of the most memorable scenes, where silence, hesitation, and the eventual push forward into bravery resonate more deeply than any action sequence could. The film also touches on the legacy of past choices. The world of dragons and humans has always been one shaped by decisions made generations before, and the new story underlines the responsibility of inheriting those choices. It reflects on how the past cannot be undone but can be learned from, and how the future depends on whether the next generation embraces or rejects those lessons. This thematic through-line ties beautifully into the film's multi-generational perspective, reminding audiences that history is never static but alive within the people and creatures who carry it forward. At times, the film's messaging can feel slightly uneven. While its central themes are strong and consistently reinforced, there are moments where spectacle overshadows subtlety. Some sequences lean so heavily on visual grandeur that the thematic weight risks being drowned out. Yet even in those moments, echoes of the film's ideas can still be found in the small details, the lingering look between Hiccup and Toothless, the way silence stretches in moments of loss, or how a dragon's roar doubles as both a warning and a plea for understanding. Ultimately, How to Train Your Dragon 2025 is a story about connection, transformation, and the pursuit of harmony in a world defined by conflict. Its themes of identity, redemption, power, love, fear, and legacy are woven tightly into the narrative, offering not just entertainment but also thoughtful reflection. For audiences, especially those who have grown alongside this series, the messages strike with particular force, underscoring that growth is not about leaving behind what once mattered but about carrying it forward into new and uncertain horizons. The visual effects and CGI in How to Train Your Dragon 2025 represent one of the most defining aspects of the film's cinematic identity. Over the years, the franchise has been celebrated for its ability to craft a world where dragons feel both magical and believable, and this new installment raises the bar even further. The technology has advanced significantly since the original film, and every frame demonstrates how the filmmakers harness cutting-edge CGI to build a seamless and immersive universe. From the intricate details of dragon scales glistening in the sunlight to vast aerial battles across sprawling skies, the visual effects are designed not just to impress but to support the emotional and thematic weight of the story. One of the standout achievements of the film is how natural the dragons appear on screen. Toothless in particular has always been a character who relies heavily on digital animation, and here he looks more lifelike than ever. His subtle expressions, body language, and even the movement of his wings capture an emotional depth that transcends simple CGI. It is not just the big, dramatic moments that shine but also the smaller ones, the twitch of an ear, the flick of a tail, or the tilt of a head, that remind the audience why Toothless is such a beloved character. These details show how the animators have mastered the balance of anthropomorphism and realism, making the dragons relatable without stripping them of their natural animal essence. The flight sequences, long a hallmark of the series, are where the visual effects team truly showcase their artistry. Wide shots of Hiccup and Toothless soaring over oceans, through storms, or into hidden dragon sanctuaries are breathtaking. The sense of speed, weight, and gravity is meticulously captured, allowing audiences to feel the thrill of flight as if they were in the saddle themselves. The use of CGI here is not decorative but deeply functional, immersing viewers in the scale and scope of this fantastical world. The blending of vibrant color palettes with fluid camera motion creates an almost balletic spectacle, where every aerial twist and turn serves both spectacle and story. One of the most visually striking sequences involves a massive battle where multiple dragons engage in coordinated maneuvers against their foes. This scene required heavy compositing, motion capture, and digital layering, but the end result is remarkably cohesive. Rather than overwhelming the viewer with too much visual noise, the effects are carefully staged so that each moment has clarity and weight. The audience can follow the trajectory of the action while also appreciating the intricate designs of new dragons introduced in this chapter. Each creature has a unique visual identity, with skin textures, wingspans, and color schemes rendered in stunning detail. Lighting and environmental effects also play a crucial role in selling the realism of the CGI. Scenes set in stormy seas, volcanic landscapes, or icy caverns are heightened by the interplay of digital elements with naturalistic physics. Rain beads off dragon scales, fire illuminates the night sky with terrifying brilliance, and ice glows with an ethereal translucence that makes the world feel tangible. These details may seem small, but they prevent the visuals from drifting into the uncanny valley and instead anchor the fantasy in a grounded reality. While CGI dominates the production, the film also incorporates subtle practical effects and textures to enhance believability. Costumes, props, and certain set pieces are designed with real-world materials that blend seamlessly into the digital backdrops. This hybrid approach helps avoid the artificial gloss that sometimes plagues heavily CGI-driven films. By grounding key interactions in practical design, the filmmakers ensure that the digital spectacle does not overshadow the human element of the story. Of course, no film of this scale is flawless. There are moments where the sheer density of effects threatens to overwhelm the screen. In some high-intensity sequences, particularly those with multiple dragons and human armies clashing at once, the eye struggles to keep track of every detail. While this chaos may be intentional, it occasionally borders on disorienting. However, these instances are relatively rare, and the majority of the film maintains an impressive balance between clarity and grandeur. Another minor drawback is the occasional reliance on visual effects to heighten emotional beats, rather than letting the actors or story carry the weight. In one or two scenes, dramatic lighting shifts or overly polished CGI flourishes seem to overplay their hand, distracting from what should have been intimate moments. These instances are not deal-breaking but serve as reminders that even the best technology must always serve the narrative first. Overall, the visual effects in CGI in How to Train Your Dragon 2025 succeed not because they show off technological advancements but because they are so carefully integrated into the heart of the storytelling. The dragons feel alive, the world feels vast yet intimate, and the spectacle never loses sight of character-driven emotion. The seamless execution of these effects ensures that the audience is transported fully into this universe, where the impossible feels possible and the fantastical becomes profoundly real. It is a triumph of technical brilliance working in harmony with narrative purpose, leaving behind images that will stay etched in the minds of viewers long after the credits roll. The set design and locations in How to Train Your Dragon 2025 are instrumental in bringing the world of Berk and its surrounding lands to life. From the moment the film opens, it is clear that production designers and location scouts worked meticulously to create environments that feel both lived in and epic in scale. Every detail, from the texture of walls to the arrangement of props, contributes to the authenticity and atmosphere of the story, grounding the fantastical elements in a tactile reality. Berk itself is a standout achievement in set design. The village is portrayed as a community shaped by its harsh environment and history of dragon encounters. Timber-framed houses with thatched roofs, weathered wood, and stone foundations convey a sense of endurance and practicality. Small details, such as carved dragon motifs on doorways or wear patterns on commonly used tools, imply a culture that has long coexisted with dragons. The interiors feel lived in, workbenches are cluttered with tools, shelves hold preserved herbs and equipment, and personal items hint at individual characters' personalities and routines. These elements do more than decorate the set, they tell a story about a people shaped by survival, craftsmanship, and tradition. The film smartly balances studio builds with real locations to achieve both control and authenticity. Key interiors, such as Hiccup's workshop and Stoick's hall, were constructed on sound stages, allowing precise lighting, camera movement, and interaction with CGI dragons. These sets provide a consistent visual language while giving actors space to inhabit their characters fully. In contrast, exteriors were often shot in dramatic natural locations, including rugged cliffs, rolling fjords, and dense forests, which lend a sense of scale and grandeur that would be difficult to replicate entirely in a studio. The combination ensures that Berk feels real, vast, and connected to a natural environment without sacrificing cinematic control. Attention to texture is a hallmark of the film's production design. Stone, wood, and metal are rendered with painstaking detail, showing age, weathering, and repeated use. Roofs sag under the weight of snow or wear, walls are scarred from past battles, and everyday objects such as barrels, ropes, and baskets are arranged to reflect functionality. These subtle choices allow viewers to absorb the world organically. Even without explicit exposition, the sets communicate history, culture, and lifestyle. This dedication to detail also extends to props. Hiccup's tools and inventions, toothless harnesses, and even the villagers' armor all feel practical and character-specific, reinforcing their role in the story. The design of dragon habitats demonstrates a similar commitment to believability. Caves, hidden coves, and flight perches are built to integrate naturally into the landscape. Moss, lichen, and weathered rock formations give these spaces a sense of age and permanence. Even in fully CGI-augmented scenes, the base practical sets provide actors with tangible reference points, making their interactions with dragons feel grounded. The seamless blending of physical sets with digital extensions enhances immersion, ensuring that the fantasy elements feel part of a lived-in world rather than floating in abstraction. Lighting and color within the set design further reinforce mood and narrative. Warm tones in interiors convey comfort and familial ties, while cooler, desaturated palettes in the village's exterior establish the harshness of daily life. Seasonal changes, such as snow or mist, are integrated into the locations to heighten atmosphere and underline story beats. For example, the first meeting between Hiccup and Toothless occurs in a cove bathed in soft, natural light, emphasizing wonder and vulnerability, while battle sequences in stormy skies utilize darker, turbulent lighting to underscore danger and chaos. Even smaller design choices support character development and thematic resonance. Personal artifacts, such as Hiccup's journals or Astrid's training equipment, reveal aspects of personality and motivation without dialogue. Stoick's hall is filled with symbols of authority, reflecting his role as leader, while the cluttered workshop speaks to Hiccup's inventiveness and curiosity. These details enrich storytelling by providing visual shorthand for character traits, relationships, and social dynamics. In addition, the film employs scale strategically. Narrow village streets convey intimacy and community, while open landscapes emphasize freedom, exploration, and the grandeur of dragon flight. The contrast between confined interiors and sweeping exteriors mirrors the story's emotional arcs, highlighting moments of personal struggle versus triumphant liberation. Ultimately, the set design and locations in How to Train Your Dragon 2025 are more than aesthetic choices. They are storytelling tools that support mood, character, and narrative. By blending real-world landscapes with meticulously crafted studio sets, adding rich textures and historically grounded details, and designing spaces that respond to character and action, the production team creates a world that feels both fantastical and tangible. Viewers are transported into Berk not merely as spectators but as participants, immersed in a universe where every prop, wall, and horizon reinforces the story's themes of courage, growth, and coexistence. The dialogue and script in How to Train Your Dragon 2025 are central to shaping character, advancing the plot, and reinforcing the film's emotional and thematic core. From the outset, it is evident that the writers aim to balance naturalistic speech with narrative efficiency, crafting lines that reveal personality while moving the story forward. The script is layered, often operating on multiple levels at once: humor, exposition, and emotional resonance, while still providing moments of reflection and quiet intensity where words give way to gesture or silence. One of the film's strongest achievements in dialogue is its characterization. Hiccup's voice is distinct, intelligent, slightly self-deprecating, and consistently reflective. Lines like, "I don't just want to train dragons. I want to understand them," reveal both his curiosity and his empathetic nature, establishing him as a protagonist whose intelligence is inseparable from his compassion. Similarly, Stoick's speech carries authority, shaped by years of leadership, but it is not without vulnerability. Moments of conflict between father and son are written to reflect generational tension, with each line layered with meaning, frustration, or affection. The script allows these exchanges to feel real and earned rather than artificially dramatic. The supporting cast also benefits from precise dialogue. Astrid's lines are often sharp and purposeful, revealing wit, decisiveness, and a practical mindset. Secondary characters such as Gobber or Rough Nut are given humor that arises organically from personality rather than relying solely on slapstick or clichés. Even brief exchanges convey depth, like the villagers' gossip or reactions to dragons, which subtly build the world without overt exposition. The dialogue is economical yet vivid, demonstrating careful attention to voice and rhythm. Subtext plays a crucial role throughout the script. The film frequently communicates character motivations and emotional stakes indirectly, letting the audience read between the lines. For example, in scenes where Hiccup and Toothless interact, dialogue is minimal, and gestures or glances carry most of the meaning. When words are used, they often serve as shorthand, allowing character arcs to unfold naturally. A line like, "We have more in common than we think," works on multiple levels, reflecting both Hiccup's personal journey and the larger theme of human-dragon coexistence. These moments show the writer's skill in using dialogue sparingly yet effectively. The script also demonstrates a strong sense of pacing. Conversations are structured to keep the story moving, with lines that double as plot engines. Hints about upcoming challenges, exposition about dragon behavior, or instructions for training sequences are seamlessly integrated into character dialogue. Even comedic moments are designed to contribute rhythmically to the scene, breaking tension without derailing narrative momentum. Montages often rely on minimal verbal cues, allowing dialogue to punctuate key beats rather than overwhelm them. That said, the script is not without imperfections. A few lines occasionally feel on the nose, spelling out emotions that could have been conveyed visually or through performance. In certain dramatic confrontations, exposition-heavy dialogue risks slowing pacing, particularly when characters summarize past events for audience clarity rather than letting tension build organically. These moments are infrequent, but they highlight the delicate balance between clarity and subtlety in family-oriented action fantasy films. Humor is another area where the script succeeds. The comedic timing relies on both dialogue and delivery, creating humor that feels intrinsic to the characters rather than imposed. For example, Gobber's sarcastic remarks or Toothless' expressive reactions paired with Hiccup's understated observations generate levity without undermining stakes. These moments provide breathing space between high-intensity action or emotionally charged sequences, maintaining tonal balance. Dialogue also reflects thematic concerns, often articulating the moral and philosophical questions at the heart of the story. Discussions about trust, fear, and coexistence serve to underline central themes without feeling preachy. Lines like, "We can't fight what we don't understand," encapsulate the movie's message of empathy and cooperation, giving the audience something to ponder beyond spectacle. Silence is equally powerful in the script. Many pivotal emotional moments are underscored not by words but by absence. Scenes between Hiccup and Toothless, or moments of personal reflection, use minimal dialogue to let performances, music, and visual cues carry emotional weight. The contrast between dialogue-driven scenes and these quiet beats emphasizes the maturity and subtlety of the storytelling. In summary, the dialogue and script in How to Train Your Dragon 2025 are carefully crafted to balance naturalistic speech, plot advancement, and thematic resonance. Strong characterization, effective subtext, and purposeful pacing create a narrative that is both engaging and emotionally satisfying. While occasional moments are slightly over-explanatory, the majority of the script demonstrates intelligence, restraint, and wit, allowing audiences to connect with characters, understand stakes, and experience the story in a way that feels organic, layered, and true to the world of Berk. How to Train Your Dragon 2025 is a film that occupies multiple genres simultaneously, blending action, adventure, fantasy, and coming-of-age drama into a cohesive narrative. From the outset, it is clear that the filmmakers sought to honor the established conventions of the franchise while also expanding the scope and stakes to appeal to both returning audiences and newcomers. In terms of genre execution, the film succeeds by carefully balancing these elements, delivering the thrills and spectacle expected of a fantasy adventure while grounding the story in emotional depth and character-driven drama. Action is one of the most prominent genres in the film, and How to Train Your Dragon 2025 delivers it with precision. Aerial combat sequences are staged with both clarity and excitement, avoiding the common pitfall of chaotic editing that can confuse viewers in large-scale fantasy battles. The choreography of dragons, combined with the use of scale and perspective, provides a sense of vertigo and exhilaration that is rare in live-action adaptations of animated properties. These sequences honor audience expectations for dynamic, high-stakes action while integrating fantasy elements, such as dragon abilities and environmental hazards, in ways that feel natural and organic to the story. Adventure is another genre the film embraces, and it does so by emphasizing exploration, discovery, and the journey motif. Hiccup's quest to understand dragons and bridge the gap between species is framed within sweeping landscapes, hidden coves, and uncharted territories. This adherence to classic adventure beats, journeys into unknown territory, encounters with challenges, and the uncovering of secrets, is executed with care. Unlike some fantasy films that rely heavily on exposition, How to Train Your Dragon 2025 allows the world itself to communicate history, danger, and wonder through location design, visual cues, and interaction with dragons, keeping the adventure grounded in exploration rather than contrivance. The film also functions as a coming-of-age drama, an element that distinguishes it from more generic fantasy adventure fare. Hiccup's character arc embodies personal growth, responsibility, and moral development. The script balances action with quieter, introspective moments where Hiccup confronts fear, doubts, and familial expectations. These moments are handled with subtlety, allowing the audience to experience the emotional journey organically. The drama is reinforced by supporting characters, whose relationships with Hiccup provide tension, humor, and insight, keeping the narrative emotionally resonant while never slowing the pace excessively. Fantasy as a genre is executed with careful attention to world building and internal logic. Dragons are not mere monsters or fantastical set pieces. They are fully realized characters with distinct behaviors, personalities, and motivations. The film avoids common fantasy clichés, such as all-powerful magical creatures or overly simplified villainy. The antagonists, whether human or dragon, are layered and driven by understandable motivations, contributing to the film's thematic resonance. Magic and fantasy elements are integrated in a way that supports story and character development rather than appearing as gratuitous spectacle. This approach both honors genre expectations and refreshes them by grounding the fantastical in believable stakes and emotional consequences. The pacing of genre beats is particularly effective. Action sequences are strategically interspersed with emotional beats, ensuring that the audience is neither overwhelmed nor disengaged. Comedy is woven in organically, often arising from character interactions or the playful nature of dragons, providing relief without undermining tension. This rhythm respects the hybrid nature of the genre, delivering a multifaceted experience that satisfies diverse audience expectations. Clichés are largely avoided or subverted. While the young hero proving themselves to an elder trope is present, it is handled with nuance and complexity. Hiccup's growth is not a simple triumph of skill but a negotiation of empathy, wisdom, and leadership. Similarly, dragon-human conflict, which could easily become a repetitive plot device, is reframed to explore themes of trust, coexistence, and understanding. These choices prevent the film from feeling predictable, even as it adheres to familiar genre structures. One area where the film takes creative risks is in its tonal balance. It seamlessly blends intense action with quiet emotional reflection, maintaining tension without sacrificing intimacy. While this hybrid approach could risk alienating purists of either action or drama, the execution largely succeeds, keeping the audience invested in both the spectacle and the character-driven stakes. The integration of comedy, adventure, and fantasy ensures that the film appeals to a broad demographic without diluting its genre identity. In summary, How to Train Your Dragon 2025 executes its hybrid genre with intelligence and care. It honors audience expectations for thrilling action, sweeping adventure, and immersive fantasy while grounding the story in emotional depth and character-driven drama. The film skillfully navigates potential clichés, subverting or refining them to maintain freshness and engagement. Its balance of spectacle, intimacy, and thematic weight demonstrates a confident understanding of genre, resulting in a cinematic experience that is both familiar and innovative, satisfying longtime fans while remaining accessible to new viewers. How to Train Your Dragon 2025, while primarily a fantasy adventure, contains layers of social and cultural commentary that reflect contemporary concerns and timeless human dilemmas. The film's narrative and character dynamics offer insights into issues such as environmental stewardship, leadership responsibility, cultural coexistence, and generational conflict. These themes are woven into the story without becoming preachy, though at times the commentary is simplified to fit the film's family-friendly structure. Nonetheless, it provides audiences with moments for reflection on social and cultural dynamics relevant both within and beyond the fictional world of Berk. A central social theme is coexistence and understanding between different communities. The relationship between humans and dragons serves as an allegory for intercultural dialogue and the need to overcome prejudice. Dragons are initially perceived as threats, feared because of their differences and misunderstood behaviors. Hiccup's efforts to communicate, empathize, and ultimately collaborate with dragons mirror real-world conversations about inclusion, tolerance, and bridging divides between groups with a history of conflict. The film portrays these lessons through action, visual storytelling, and character choices, emphasizing that empathy is a proactive practice rather than a passive ideal. Environmental consciousness is another key commentary embedded in the film. The dragons, as powerful natural forces, are deeply intertwined with the landscapes they inhabit. Scenes depicting destructive human actions versus harmonious coexistence highlight the consequences of neglecting or exploiting natural resources. Hiccup's advocacy for understanding dragons rather than controlling them serves as a metaphor for sustainable interaction with the environment. These moments, though subtle, are timely, reflecting contemporary discourse around climate change, conservation, and human responsibility toward ecosystems. Leadership and governance also emerge as significant cultural themes. Stoick and Hiccup represent different approaches to authority, one rooted in tradition and power, the other in empathy and adaptability. This contrast allows the film to explore generational tensions, highlighting how rigid adherence to past methods can create conflict while openness to new ideas fosters collaboration and progress. Such dynamics resonate in real-world contexts, offering commentary on how societies navigate change, generational differences, and evolving values. The film touches on social hierarchies and communal cooperation. Berk is a society built around shared labor, collective defense, and mutual dependence, but its citizens must learn to adapt when challenges disrupt established routines. By showing characters negotiating roles, responsibilities, and personal desires within the community, the story comments on the balance between individual initiative and social obligation. These themes, while framed in a fantastical context, carry clear relevance to real-world discussions about civic duty, teamwork, and the distribution of power. Fear and misinformation are addressed as well. Characters initially act out of fear or incomplete knowledge, leading to destructive decisions. The narrative emphasizes that understanding and direct communication are essential for resolving conflict, illustrating the societal consequences of acting on assumptions or prejudice. These lessons are particularly pertinent in an era of rapid information exchange, where misunderstandings can escalate quickly without deliberate efforts to empathize and verify. The film is largely sensitive in its handling of these social and cultural themes, avoiding overt moralizing or caricature. The challenges presented are often contextualized within the story's fantasy world, allowing audiences of different ages to engage with the ideas at an appropriate level. However, the commentary occasionally simplifies complex issues. For example, human-dragon conflict is resolved through empathy and bravery, which, while effective narratively, does not fully reflect the nuanced compromises or systemic changes often required in real-world social conflicts. The film also does not deeply interrogate structural inequalities or diverse cultural perspectives, focusing instead on interpersonal dynamics and community cohesion. Moments that feel particularly timely include sequences highlighting collaborative problem-solving and the dangers of reactionary thinking. Hiccup's insistence on dialogue over violence, and his willingness to question authority when necessary, reflects contemporary debates about ethical leadership, negotiation, and civic responsibility. Similarly, scenes where dragons are endangered due to human error underscore themes of stewardship and accountability, subtly encouraging audiences to reflect on their own relationship with nature. Overall, How to Train Your Dragon 2025 presents social and cultural commentary in a way that enhances its story without overwhelming it. It raises questions about empathy, environmental responsibility, leadership, and community while remaining accessible to a broad audience. Although some issues are simplified for narrative clarity, the film effectively opens productive lines of thought, allowing viewers to consider parallels between the challenges faced in Berk and those in the real world. The commentary contributes to the film's resonance, adding depth beyond action and spectacle and positioning it as a story with relevance for both contemporary society and timeless human concerns. Audience engagement in How to Train Your Dragon 2025 is expertly crafted, designed to evoke a spectrum of emotions while keeping viewers invested from start to finish. The film balances high-stakes action, humor, and emotional resonance, ensuring that audiences are not just passive observers but active participants in the story. From gasp-worthy aerial sequences to tender, quiet moments between characters, the movie strategically delivers moments that linger in memory, inspire discussion, and encourage repeat viewing. One of the most engaging aspects is the aerial dragon sequences. The camera work, combined with CGI and carefully staged choreography, creates a sense of vertigo and exhilaration that is almost physical. Scenes where Hiccup and Toothless maneuver through narrow canyons, evade enemy attacks, or soar above sweeping landscapes are engineered to make audiences gasp. The thrill of flight, combined with emotional stakes, such as the risk to dragons or human allies, heightens engagement. These sequences are often replayed by viewers, both for visual spectacle and for subtle details like dragon expressions or strategic maneuvers that reward close attention. Humor is another key element of audience engagement. Supporting characters provide levity without undermining the story's tension. Moments involving Gobber's witty one-liners, the playful antics of Rough Nut and Tough Nut, or Toothless' expressive gestures generate laughter that balances the more intense sequences. These comedic beats are carefully timed, serving both as relief and as a means of deepening audience connection with characters. Many of these moments are highly shareable, lending themselves to GIFs, memes, and social media discussion, which extends engagement beyond the theater or initial viewing. Emotional resonance is central to the film's design for audience impact. Scenes highlighting the bond between Hiccup and Toothless, especially moments of vulnerability or trust, are crafted to elicit tears and empathetic reactions. Quiet sequences, such as Toothless nudging Hiccup to signal concern or Hiccup making a difficult decision that affects the dragon community, allow audiences to absorb subtle character growth. These moments often spark discussion among viewers about relationships, choices, and emotional motivations, enhancing post-viewing engagement and encouraging repeat viewings to catch nuances missed the first time. The narrative also incorporates suspense and tension to sustain engagement. Action sequences are interspersed with moments of uncertainty, characters trapped, dragons endangered, or plans on the verge of failure. This ebb and flow of pacing keeps viewers emotionally invested, prompting reactions of anxiety or anticipation. These sequences often include small visual cues or plot details that are easy to miss on a first viewing, rewarding audiences who rewatch the film. Discussions about strategy, character decisions, or alternative outcomes can emerge organically, providing opportunities for fan theories and debate. Certain plot beats are intentionally designed for discussion. Ethical dilemmas, leadership decisions, and conflict resolution moments encourage viewers to consider what they would do in similar situations. Hiccup's approach to reconciling humans and dragons, for example, can spark conversations about empathy, risk, and responsibility. These thematic beats not only deepen the film's narrative but also enhance engagement by prompting reflective discussion, both in casual conversation and online communities. The film also succeeds in building signature, memorable moments that linger visually and emotionally. Key sequences, such as the first coordinated dragon flight of the new generation, dramatic confrontations with antagonists, or ceremonial village gatherings, are composed to be visually iconic and emotionally significant. These beats are likely to be remembered long after the film ends and can be highlighted in fan art, social media posts, or group discussions. The combination of visual grandeur, sound design, and character stakes ensures these moments stick with audiences, reinforcing engagement across multiple viewings. Rewatchability is further enhanced by layered storytelling. Background details, subtle character interactions, and environmental storytelling provide rewards for attentive viewers. Viewers may notice small cues, like a dragon's gesture, a subtle shift in facial expression, or a hidden prop, that enrich understanding or highlight foreshadowing missed initially. These layered elements encourage audiences to revisit scenes, analyze character behavior, and deepen appreciation for the film's craftsmanship. Finally, the film balances spectacle with intimacy, ensuring that no emotional or visual moment feels wasted. By alternating between grand, awe-inspiring sequences and quiet, human-scale interactions, the filmmakers maintain continuous engagement. Laughter, gasps, tears, and contemplation are carefully spaced, creating an emotional rhythm that keeps audiences involved and invested throughout the runtime. In summary, How to Train Your Dragon 2025 engages audiences through a careful interplay of thrill, humor, emotional depth, suspense, and visual spectacle. Its signature sequences, layered storytelling, and memorable character interactions encourage repeat viewing, discussion, and long-term fan engagement. The film is designed to resonate on multiple levels, offering both immediate emotional impact and rewards for those who revisit its world, ensuring it will be remembered, shared, and debated long after the credits roll. How to Train Your Dragon 2025, when compared to other films in its genre and the franchise's earlier installments, demonstrates both evolution and continuity in storytelling, visual style, and thematic ambition. The franchise has long been celebrated for blending breathtaking fantasy adventure with character-driven drama, and this latest installment builds on that legacy while also navigating the expectations set by both its predecessors and similar films in the broader animated or live-action fantasy adventure space. Examining these comparisons highlights the film's strengths, areas of reinvention, and moments where it may fall short relative to the cinematic competition. In terms of its own lineage, How to Train Your Dragon 2025 maintains the emotional core established in the original trilogy while raising the stakes in action and visual spectacle. Earlier films focused heavily on the bond between Hiccup and Toothless and the coming-of-age journey within a relatively contained environment. This installment expands the scope geographically and narratively, exploring new regions, introducing additional dragons, and presenting more complex antagonists. Compared to How to Train Your Dragon 2010 and 2014, the 2025 film delivers larger set pieces and more intricate aerial combat sequences, reflecting advances in CGI and animation technology while preserving the franchise's signature heart and humor. This evolution demonstrates a strength in balancing continuity with innovation. Comparing it to other contemporary animated or hybrid fantasy films, such as Raya and the Last Dragon or Legend of the Guardians, How to Train Your Dragon 2025 distinguishes itself through its commitment to grounded emotional storytelling amidst high fantasy elements. While films like Raya emphasize mythic world-building and stylized action, How to Train Your Dragon 2025 combines those visual flourishes with interpersonal drama that feels intimate and relatable. The franchise's focus on Hiccup's moral and ethical development, coupled with the nuanced portrayal of dragon characters as sentient beings rather than mere fantastical creatures, sets it apart from competitors that sometimes prioritize spectacle over emotional resonance. There are also noticeable influences from large-scale fantasy adventure films, including the Lord of the Rings trilogy and Studio Ghibli epics such as Princess Mononoke. The sweeping landscapes, the meticulous world-building, and the interplay between humans and mystical creatures reflect inspiration drawn from these cinematic benchmarks. However, How to Train Your Dragon 2025 adapts these influences to a family-friendly context, emphasizing accessibility, humor, and emotional clarity. Unlike darker or more adult-oriented fantasy films, the story maintains a hopeful and adventurous tone, appealing to a broad demographic while still engaging with complex themes of empathy, leadership, and coexistence. In terms of narrative structure, the film takes cues from both its franchise predecessors and genre standards while attempting subtle reinventions. Key turning points, climactic battles, and character arcs echo familiar beats from earlier installments, providing a sense of continuity that fans appreciate. Yet the pacing, the integration of multiple character viewpoints, and the expansion of thematic exploration reflect a desire to evolve beyond formulaic patterns. By incorporating layered storytelling, where environmental storytelling, background details, and subtext enrich the plot, the film rewards attentive viewers and differentiates itself from competitors that rely more heavily on overt exposition. Visually, How to Train Your Dragon 2025 is ambitious, particularly in its depiction of flight sequences, dragon design, and large-scale battles. When compared to other animated fantasy films or even live-action hybrids, the integration of CGI with practical references and environmental realism sets a benchmark for immersion. While some contemporary films offer visually striking moments, the franchise's careful attention to scale, motion, and emotional weight during action sequences often surpasses genre peers, reinforcing its reputation for technical excellence. Where the film occasionally falls short in comparison is in its handling of side characters and secondary plot threads. In some scenes, certain secondary arcs feel less developed or risk being overshadowed by the spectacle and main character focus. While the franchise has always prioritized Hiccup and Toothless, films like Spider-Man, Into the Spider-Verse or Kung Fu Panda, The Dragon Knight demonstrate how ensemble development can enhance engagement across demographics. In this regard, How to Train Your Dragon 2025 retains a more centralized narrative approach, which may limit the richness of supporting arcs for some viewers. Overall, placing How to Train Your Dragon 2025 alongside similar films underscores its strengths in emotional storytelling, visual ambition, and thematic resonance while highlighting areas where it maintains traditional franchise priorities rather than pushing experimental boundaries. Its ability to honor established beats, refresh familiar formulas, and integrate lessons from both past installments and peer films ensures it remains a standout in its genre. The comparisons illustrate that the film succeeds by striking a balance between continuity, innovation, and accessibility, securing its place within the broader cinematic conversation while respecting the legacy of the franchise and audience expectations. How to Train Your Dragon 2025 is rich with symbolism and metaphor, using visual cues, repeated motifs, and narrative objects to deepen storytelling and reinforce thematic elements. These symbolic elements operate on multiple levels, enhancing character arcs, emotional resonance, and audience engagement while offering viewers layers of meaning to explore beyond the surface action. From recurring images to color choices and environmental details, the film embeds subtle cues that reward attentive observation and enrich the cinematic experience. One of the most prominent symbols throughout the film is flight itself. Dragons soaring through the skies represent freedom, trust, and the breaking of personal and societal limitations. Hiccup's first solo flight on Toothless is not just a spectacle of action but a metaphor for self-discovery and the courage required to embrace new responsibilities. Each subsequent flight sequence often mirrors Hiccup's internal journey, with smooth, controlled maneuvers signifying confidence and uncertainty-laden, turbulent flights reflecting personal or communal challenges. The visual motif of open skies versus confined spaces reinforces themes of liberation and restriction, allowing viewers to perceive the characters' emotional states through their relationship to the environment. Dragons themselves are rich in metaphorical significance. They embody both the unknown and the misunderstood, serving as mirrors to human fears, prejudices, and aspirations. Toothless, as Hiccup's primary companion, functions as a living symbol of empathy and the potential for harmony between disparate communities. Scenes where dragons hesitate, recoil, or act instinctively parallel human characters confronting their own instincts, biases, or moral choices. The evolving bond between Hiccup and Toothless highlights the power of trust and mutual understanding as a metaphor for conflict resolution and bridging divides. Color usage is another layer of symbolic storytelling. Warm hues, such as golds and oranges during sunset flight sequences or village gatherings, evoke safety, hope, and community. Cooler tones, blues, grays, and muted greens, dominate battle sequences, misty landscapes, or moments of internal conflict, underscoring tension, uncertainty, and danger. The filmmakers use these palettes deliberately, often echoing shifts in narrative tone or character development. For instance, a scene in which Hiccup confronts the antagonist amid stormy skies emphasizes both external and internal turbulence, while subsequent warmer lighting during moments of reconciliation conveys resolution and emotional warmth. Objects and props serve as recurring metaphors throughout the story. Hiccup's tools and inventions represent creativity, ingenuity, and the potential for transformation. These items are often juxtaposed against traditional Viking weaponry or Stoic architectural elements to highlight innovation versus convention. Similarly, artifacts such as dragon harnesses, scrolls, or trophies of past battles carry symbolic weight, signifying knowledge, responsibility, and historical continuity. By reintroducing these objects in multiple scenes, the filmmakers create a visual echo that reinforces character growth and narrative stakes. Environmental motifs also carry metaphorical significance. The contrast between Berk's rugged cliffs, open fjords, and hidden coves mirrors the story's emotional landscape. High cliffs and expansive vistas symbolize risk and aspiration, while enclosed spaces such as caves or village interiors reflect community, tradition, and introspection. The interplay between these settings emphasizes the tension between safety and adventure, obedience and innovation, or fear and courage, allowing audiences to internalize the characters' dilemmas through visual context rather than explicit dialogue. Silence and sound design operate as symbolic layers as well. Scenes where characters communicate non-verbally with dragons rely on minimal auditory cues, emphasizing trust, connection, and mutual understanding. The absence of dialogue in these moments magnifies the significance of gestures, glances, and posture, reinforcing the metaphor that true communication often transcends words. Similarly, recurring motifs in the musical score act as auditory symbols, linking specific themes, characters, or emotional arcs to identifiable motifs that evolve over the course of the film. Conflict and resolution are also expressed metaphorically. Battles between dragons and humans, or internal struggles within characters, often echo larger thematic ideas about fear, prejudice, and growth. The repeated motif of bridges, literal and figurative, is central, symbolizing connection, negotiation, and reconciliation. Scenes in which Hiccup and allies repair or cross bridges visually underscore attempts to unify divided communities or reconcile past mistakes. Finally, the film intentionally leaves certain symbols unresolved, inviting audience interpretation. Open-ended questions about dragon society, environmental consequences, or character futures encourage reflection and discussion. This ambiguity allows viewers to project meaning and engage with the narrative on a personal level, extending the film's impact beyond its runtime. In summary, How to Train Your Dragon 2025 employs a sophisticated array of symbolism and metaphors that operate visually, narratively, and emotionally. Flight, dragons, color palettes, objects, environments, and recurring motifs all carry deeper meaning, reinforcing character development and thematic resonance. These symbols are introduced, echoed, and occasionally left unresolved, offering viewers a layered experience that rewards close attention, reflection, and repeated viewing. By integrating symbolism seamlessly into story and spectacle, the film enhances both its emotional depth and its rewatchability, creating a world where every detail contributes to meaning, resonance, and lasting engagement. How to Train Your Dragon 2025 exists firmly within the established franchise, building upon the narrative foundation laid by the original trilogy while also expanding its scope and exploring new thematic and visual territory. For fans familiar with the previous films, this installment offers continuity, subtle callbacks, and narrative progression that honor the series' legacy. At the same time, it introduces fresh characters, locations, and conflicts that allow it to stand on its own, appealing to new audiences without requiring exhaustive prior knowledge. Understanding the franchise context enhances appreciation for the film's story, character development, and visual choices, while also highlighting how it positions itself in the larger cinematic landscape. The continuity in How to Train Your Dragon 2025 is carefully maintained, particularly in terms of character arcs and relationships. Hiccup's growth from an awkward, inventive young Viking to a confident leader is a through line that continues seamlessly from the previous films. The bond between Hiccup and Toothless remains central, with subtle nods to earlier experiences, such as their first flight, past conflicts, and established trust. Supporting characters like Astrid, Stoick, and Gobber return with consistent personalities and relationships, offering continuity for longtime fans. Their dialogue, behavior, and interactions often reference prior adventures, reinforcing the sense of a living, evolving world. These callbacks reward viewers who have followed the series, creating moments of recognition and nostalgia without alienating new audiences. The film also incorporates visual and narrative Easter eggs that enrich the franchise context. Familiar locations, recurring dragon species, and symbolic objects, such as Hiccup's tools or Viking relics, appear throughout the story, often in subtle ways that connect past and present events. These details function as both fan service and world building, reminding audiences of the larger narrative universe while highlighting the evolution of characters, technology, and societal norms. For instance, the design of certain villages or dragon nests may reference previous installments, signaling continuity in culture and geography. Narratively, How to Train Your Dragon 2025 advances the overarching story by introducing new conflicts, expanding dragon mythology, and exploring themes that were hinted at but not fully developed in earlier films. The introduction of previously unseen dragon species, expanded territories, and complex antagonists elevates the stakes while deepening the world's internal logic. These elements provide opportunities for character growth and thematic exploration, such as leadership, coexistence, and environmental responsibility, which have been central to the franchise since its inception. By doing so, the film moves the larger story forward rather than simply retreading familiar territory. The timeline placement within the franchise is carefully considered. The events of the 2025 installment appear to occur after the resolution of major conflicts from the prior films, allowing characters to act with established authority, relationships, and reputations. This chronological positioning informs character decisions, social hierarchies, and the state of dragon-human relations. Longtime viewers will recognize references to prior battles, victories, and losses, and these moments provide context for the stakes and choices in the current film. Such careful timeline placement ensures coherence across the franchise and prevents narrative inconsistencies. The film also navigates historical liberties in its portrayal of Viking culture and society. While grounded in a stylized, fictionalized version of the Viking era, How to Train Your Dragon 2025 continues to dramatize and adapt historical elements for narrative and visual purposes. Architecture, costumes, and social structures are inspired by historical research but simplified or exaggerated to serve storytelling, accessibility, and the visual language of animation and hybrid fantasy. These choices are consistent with the franchise's approach, which prioritizes emotional resonance, thematic clarity, and audience engagement over strict historical accuracy. In terms of series progression, How to Train Your Dragon 2025 balances honoring past narratives with setting up potential future stories. The resolution of certain conflicts, combined with hints of new challenges and unexplored territories, positions the franchise for possible sequels, spin-offs, or expanded media. This forward-looking approach demonstrates strategic planning in world-building and franchise management, ensuring continued relevance and audience interest. Finally, the film strengthens the franchise's identity through thematic continuity. Themes of empathy, leadership, courage, and coexistence persist, providing a familiar moral framework while allowing exploration of new narrative territory. Recurring motifs, such as flight, bridges, and dragon symbolism, tie the film back to its roots, reinforcing the sense of a coherent and evolving universe. In summary, How to Train Your Dragon 2025 succeeds within its franchise context by maintaining character continuity, integrating visual and narrative callbacks, advancing overarching storylines, and balancing historical inspiration with creative liberties. Easter eggs, timeline consistency, and thematic cohesion reward longtime fans while ensuring accessibility for new audiences. Its careful integration into the series strengthens the franchise's legacy, providing both closure for past arcs and avenues for future exploration. How to Train Your Dragon 2025 had an estimated production budget of approximately $175 million, placing it among the higher-end animated and hybrid live-action films of its time. This substantial investment allowed the filmmakers to pursue ambitious visual effects, cutting-edge CGI, motion capture, and meticulously detailed environments. The budget also facilitated the return of high-profile voice talent, ensuring continuity with previous installments while strengthening audience attachment to key characters. Visually, the film maximizes the impact of this budget. Aerial sequences featuring dragons soaring through expansive landscapes are rendered with remarkable precision and fluidity, demonstrating the resources allocated to animation and visual effects. Sweeping vistas, intricate village designs, and highly detailed dragon models reflect the production's commitment to immersing audiences in the world of Berk. While some scenes appear more economical, such as character-focused interactions or minimalistic backgrounds, these choices serve narrative clarity and emotional intimacy rather than indicating cost-cutting. The budget enables a balance between spectacle and personal storytelling, ensuring that viewers experience both awe-inspiring visuals and meaningful character moments. A significant portion of the budget went toward talent, including returning voice actors such as Hiccup's and Astrid's actors, who bring continuity and emotional depth. Supporting characters are cast strategically, allowing humor, exposition, and dramatic beats to be delivered effectively without inflating costs unnecessarily. Investing in proven performers ensures that the emotional stakes resonate with audiences, enhancing the film's overall impact. Marketing and release strategy play a major role in translating budget into box office success. Extensive promotion, including trailers, social media campaigns, and merchandising tie-ins, leverages the franchise's established reputation while highlighting new elements like dragon species, expanded territories, and high-stakes conflicts. The film's release date was chosen to maximize family audiences, aligning with school holidays and avoiding competition with other major releases. Strategic marketing ensures that the investment in production is reflected in audience turnout, both domestically and internationally. Opening weekend performance is often a key indicator of success for a film with this budget. How to Train Your Dragon 2025 benefited from franchise recognition and positive anticipation, leading to strong initial box office receipts. However, long-term financial performance depends on word of mouth, critical reception, and audience engagement. Repeat viewings, family attendance, and social sharing of memorable sequences contribute to continued revenue generation. International markets, particularly in Europe and Asia, are crucial for recouping high production costs, and the universal appeal of dragons, adventure, and friendship strengthens the film's global box office potential. Beyond ticket sales, ancillary revenue streams help justify the $175 million investment. Merchandise such as toys, clothing, and collectibles generate significant returns, particularly for franchises with strong fan engagement. Streaming rights, home video sales, and digital rentals provide additional long-term profitability. The film's high production quality enhances merchandise appeal, while its engaging story and memorable characters encourage cross-platform consumption. When evaluating the film's budget relative to what appears on screen, it is clear that How to Train Your Dragon 2025 delivers both spectacle and emotional depth. Expensive CGI sequences, elaborate set designs, and detailed dragon animations showcase the effective allocation of funds, while carefully staged intimate scenes emphasize character development and storytelling economy. The production manages to create a world that feels richer than its budget might suggest in certain moments, balancing large-scale visual ambition with narrative precision. In conclusion, How to Train Your Dragon 2025, with its $175 million budget, effectively translates investment into cinematic impact. Careful allocation across visual effects, talent, set design, and marketing ensures that audiences experience a film that is both spectacular and emotionally resonant. Box office returns, merchandise sales, and global audience appeal all contribute to measuring financial success, demonstrating that the production not only meets but often exceeds expectations relative to its budget. Strategic planning and creative execution combine to produce a film that maximizes both visual richness and commercial potential. How to Train Your Dragon 2025 offers multiple ways for audiences to experience its story, and the viewing choice can significantly influence the impact of both its visual spectacle and emotional resonance. The film was initially released in theaters, where its sweeping landscapes, detailed dragon animations, and large-scale action sequences are most impressive. Watching the movie on the big screen allows viewers to fully appreciate the technical craftsmanship, from CGI and motion capture to lighting, framing, and sound design. The immersive experience of theaters, with expansive screens and high-quality audio systems, is particularly effective during flight sequences, battle scenes, and any moments of dramatic tension, as the scale enhances the sense of excitement and adventure. For those unable to catch the theatrical release, major streaming platforms provide convenient access to How to Train Your Dragon 2025 shortly after its run in cinemas. Streaming allows viewers to watch at home with flexible timing and the option to pause, rewatch, or explore subtle details in the film. While the scale is smaller than in theaters, streaming still delivers high-definition visuals and surround sound when paired with appropriate home setups. This format is ideal for families, casual viewers, or anyone who prefers watching at their own pace. Streaming also enables repeated viewings, which is particularly valuable for appreciating character interactions, visual Easter eggs, and narrative subtleties that reward attention to detail. Home theater setups with large screens, projectors, or high-quality sound systems can closely replicate the theatrical experience. In such contexts, viewers can experience the same thrill of flight sequences, dynamic battles, and environmental detail while maintaining the convenience of a home setting. Using headphones or surround sound systems enhances the film's auditory impact, allowing audiences to appreciate the musical score, sound effects, and subtle ambient cues that heighten immersion. For viewers with access to quality visual and audio equipment, home viewing can approach the cinematic spectacle, combining comfort with engagement. Rental or purchase options, both physical and digital, provide additional flexibility. Physical copies such as Blu-ray or 4K UHD discs often include bonus features, commentary tracks, and behind-the-scenes content that enrich the viewing experience. These extras allow fans to explore the filmmaking process, understand creative decisions, and deepen appreciation for animation, visual effects, and voice performances. Digital purchases provide similar opportunities, with the convenience of on-demand access across multiple devices. This option is particularly suited for collectors, enthusiasts, or viewers who want permanent access to the film for repeated exploration of story details and visual motifs. Audience experience varies depending on the chosen format. Theatrical viewing emphasizes scale and spectacle, making it ideal for first-time audiences who want to be swept into the world of Berk. Streaming or home viewing is convenient and supports repeated engagement, allowing viewers to focus on character development, narrative subtleties, and visual Easter eggs. Rentals and purchases offer longevity, additional features, and the ability to revisit favorite sequences, which enhances long-term engagement and appreciation for the film's production quality. For families, streaming or home viewing can be particularly effective, providing a controlled environment for younger audiences and the opportunity to discuss plot points, character arcs, or thematic elements in real time. Watching together encourages conversation about the film's messages, visual storytelling, and character growth, reinforcing engagement beyond passive observation. Likewise, solo viewers or animation enthusiasts may prefer home setups with quality audio and video equipment to fully absorb the technical craftsmanship, such as CGI details, lighting design, and subtle sound cues. When choosing the optimal viewing context, audiences should consider their priorities. If the goal is to experience the full cinematic spectacle, the theater is unmatched. If convenience, accessibility, and repeat viewing are most important, streaming or home theater systems provide excellent alternatives. Collectors and enthusiasts benefit from physical or digital purchases, gaining access to additional content that contextualizes the film within its franchise and highlights the creative effort behind its production. Each format offers distinct advantages, allowing viewers to tailor the experience to their preferences and resources. In conclusion, How to Train Your Dragon 2025 can be enjoyed in theaters, via streaming platforms, or through rental and purchase options, with each format offering unique benefits. Theatrical viewing maximizes scale, immersion, and impact, while streaming provides convenience and flexibility for repeated engagement. Home theater setups replicate cinematic quality, and rentals or purchases offer longevity and supplementary content. Audiences can choose the method that best aligns with their viewing priorities, whether seeking a first-time spectacle, detailed rewatching, or deeper exploration of production insights, ensuring that the film is accessible and engaging for every type of viewer. If you enjoyed this video and would like us to provide reviews of every kind of movie, please remember to like, comment, share, and subscribe to our channel. Have a great day, and we'll see you in the next video.
Goodbye.